Can you hear me? Okay, welcome everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority, the City of Crescent City and the County of Del Norte. It is April the 21st, and I think first maybe we should call the roll. Okay, so
I'm hiding over
Karen?
here. Commissioner Gatlin,
Yes.
Commissioner Gastineau,
I am here.
Commissioner McClure. Here. Chairman Holly.
I'm here, thank you. And we have Commissioner Wilson is in the audience tonight, given the first order of business we'll be dealing with here. And nice to have you here too. First, I want to say thank you all for making this change in the location. I think this particular location will work well for us, and given that I worked in this room for 18 years, it feels kind of comfortable. But I appreciate too that the school district's willingness to have us be here tonight. So the first order of business is public comments. These are comments that are not necessarily comments about anything on the agenda, but any member of the public may address the Solid Waste Management Authority on any matter on or off the agenda. After receiving recognition from myself, please give your name and address for the record, and comments will be limited to 3 minutes. And under the circumstances, and since we're filming this, would you please come up to the podium if you have public comments. So any public comments this afternoon? Yes, sir.
I have one.
Okay.
Do you need my full address?
No, just city or county
Okay.
residence is fine.
My name is Jake Smith. I live in Smith River, California.
Thank you.
Nice place.
Yeah, yeah.
Good afternoon, board. Well, I have a question I'd like to ask the board that I'm sure you heard before, and I'm curious about what factors are behind it. But my question is, why do we not have mandatory trash service in this county? That's my question. We have it. It's affordable. As far as I know, they go to every area in the county now. They pick up trash. Not everybody has it. Our sister counties to the south, Eureka, Ukiah, and Willits, it's mandatory. So I think it's time for us to get on board with that. I think some of the factors that are happening now, and you're going to have another speaker talking about it, there's a lot of trash and stuff dumped out there throughout the county. We'll see some pictures here in a minute of what's out there. I think for a lot of folks, especially folks that are far north and far south, it's quite a ways to go to the transfer station to dump their trash. So the end result is we're seeing a lot of trash dumped out in the forests and along the watersheds. As you all know, once the trash is dumped, unless it's picked up, it's probably not going to decompose. And it'll come back again and again and again. You pick it up, it'll come back. Pick it up, it'll come back. That's kind of the pattern. So if it's not feasible for mandatory trash pickup in the county, I have some more suggestions for you. Why not have a couple of smaller transfer stations, perhaps in Klamath or perhaps in Smith River? If not that, possibly a couple of large trash containers in a strategic location. Maybe one in Smith River, maybe one in Klamath. If not that, perhaps we could take a look at a once-a-year pickup, like they have for customers, where they come out and they pick up a pile of whatever you have.
Sir, excuse me just a second.
Yes.
I was remiss in not putting a 3-minute limit to.
Am I past 3 minutes already?
No, not yet. But I meant that's for everyone's sake. I should
I
have
was
said
aware of
that.
that.
I did not.
Thank you, Commissioner. I was aware of that.
Thank you.
40 seconds.
I got 40 seconds left? Okay. So if not the large trash bins, the once-a-year pickup, perhaps charge people a fee to pick it up. Another option, maybe the roads that are not critical for access, maybe shut them down. I think a lot of these people are dumping trash at night in the county, close them down so they can't get in there. So finally, as a closing note, I would hope the board members are out and about, seeing what's out there. You're going to see some pictures today of a problem on Roddy Creek Road that's pretty bad. So with that, I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Okay, other public comment? Did you want to respond?
Yeah, Mr. Smith, can you
Yes.
come on back?
Yes.
First of all, when you asked me this question some time ago, I put a call into, I hadn't heard back from it. I've asked Recology's Ed Farewell for a survey of other counties and which ones are compulsory pickup and which ones are not. So I'll get back to you on that, but I want to recognize that this is absolutely a critical problem of people dumping, and then there's also the affordability part of it. And I appreciate the independence of some who wish to go the route of transferring their own trash to the transfer station. That needs to be respected too, but you bring up valid points and we go a long way to preventing the ongoing blighting of our county. So I want to thank you for bringing that to our attention, and we'll look into it. Hopefully the next time we come back we'll have some more concrete answers.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Other public comment, please? Yes.
My name is Joni Forsht, and I live in Smith River also. I'm kind of following Jake. We're trying to start a program up there to clean up our little community, and hopefully that will work. I have some photographs I'd like to share with you.
Okay.
Just make 3 copies. This is on Rowdy Creek Road, and just off of Rowdy Creek Road and into the
Could you
creek.
please go
Oh,
back
I'm
to the
sorry.
podium so that it's
Okay.
filmed?
Sorry.
Thank you.
This is Roddy Creek, and it's actually leaching into the creek itself. There's a propane tank down there. I think it's on the bottom right-hand side. It's just a mess. It's just, and I know for a fact that people have been dumping there for years and years, so it's going to take a lot to clean it up. It's a mess. And this happens to be our source of drinking water, and that makes it even worse. We need to do something about this. It's a serious problem. Some of the containers that were discovered up there were pesticide containers. They were contaminants leaching into the creek. So something needs to be done. I know Mr. Gitlin is planning on coming to one of our neighborhood watch meetings, and it's the first Wednesday in May, if any of you would like to attend. So hopefully we can get started with that, I'm hoping.
Great. Thank you for your
Okay,
comments.
thank you.
Good seeing you again.
Yeah, you too, Rick, thanks.
Okay, other public comments? Okay, seeing no other public comments, we'll move on to the next item of our agenda. The next item of our agenda is something that I think many of you are here for, and that's the discussion. Yes, sir? Did I miss the Pledge of Allegiance? I apologize for that. That's what it was. We usually have a better color guard. So would you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ted. So once again, we're going to move forward with the discussion and possible action regarding the selection process for and/or the appointment of a public commissioner to serve on the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority Board for a term of 24 months. I was thinking about the process that we're going to be using, and I just wanted to go over this a little bit for everyone as far as procedure is concerned, so there won't be any mid-meeting confusion. All of the candidates have been given the questions that we're going to ask here. We'll be asking all of the candidates to go into this adjacent door where there's a meeting room, and we'll bring you out one at a time in order to answer these questions so that the other candidates don't get to hear your answers and get some advantage thereby. Tonight we have, well, let me continue to go through the process. I'll be asking the questions from the chair. You're welcome to stay after your interview. You can listen to the rest of the interviews if you choose to. We will then score each candidate from 1 to 10, with 10 being the most favorable. And the average scores will be compiled by the director and announced prior to motions. Now, this numerical evaluation is only advisory for us. I mean, there's nothing mandated for the board to go with however the numbers turn out, but it'll give us an idea and a snapshot of what the thinking is. And part of the reason for this extra step is that we started out with 9 candidates. And I'd like to take this moment to let you know of some changes that have occurred. Sandy Blakely has chosen not to participate. Jim Ramsey has chosen not to participate. Sally Roy has notified us that she would not be participating. In addition, Dale Watson continues to want to be considered, but he has provided his answers in writing to us. So I believe I'll just read his answers real quickly at the end of the regular interviews. So that leaves us with just 6 candidates and 5 interviews. So this will be a little easier to deal with, I think, than when we started out. But nonetheless, we have excellent candidates. What I thought, though, was that while Ted is compiling the numerical values that we're going to be assigning, maybe that would be the time that we'll take public comment. Each of our actions will require public comment, and then you'll have an opportunity to come up and comment prior to our taking any motions from the floor, or from the dais. Okay? Any questions from the commissioners, or any clarification needed? I'd kind of like to, if additional questions are going to come from the board, I would like them just to be clarifying questions so that we're sure that we treat all of the candidates in a similar manner. Is that okay? Okay, very good. So, any questions from the candidates right now? Okay, so I'll have Ted go ahead and call up the first candidate, and then...
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Can I
sir.
just add one? Are we as commissioners, after someone makes a presentation, are we then entering our score then, or is it done afterward? What's the protocol?
Well, I think, I know that my recall is as good as it used to be. I'll be doing it right after the interview, however you feel is best. Sometimes, when you're interviewing candidates, being the HR director here, I know that sometimes my suggestion was that you wait for 1, 2, or 3 candidates to see how things are kind of balancing. But I think we all have our own skill sets, and you can do it however. But at the end of this, we'll be handing these to Ted. Okay?
And the other question is that Commissioner A, B, C, and D, it's in this order.
Just choose one of those lines and
Yeah,
fill it out.
yeah, just, this is what Ted's going to use to tell me what he told us. Okay? That's good to get all these questions out ahead of time.
Mr. Chair, the first candidate for interview is Angela Glore, and
Okay.
I'd be delighted to escort the other candidates to the room.
And Angela, if you feel left out, you're welcome to go to that room after the interview.
I've been in that room.
We're waiting for Ted to return.
I think so. I thought he was going to stay for coffee. Thank you, Ted. Angela, welcome.
Thank you.
So, as I mentioned, I think these interviews should only take 5 or 7 minutes or so, but relax, and this is a relatively informal process, so we'll be anxious to hear what you have to say. So you've seen the questions, but I'm going to go ahead and ask them to you again.
Okay.
Okay? So the first question is, what motivated you to seek appointment as public commissioner for the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority?
So by training, I'm actually an archaeologist. And archaeologists, our whole profession is built on the idea that people throw stuff out. And without people throwing stuff out, we wouldn't have jobs. For my master's thesis, I depended on the fact that people in the past threw out their shoes when they got holes in them. So I have sort of a professional affinity for trash. But more seriously, I think that managing our solid waste as a community and a society is actually a really critical social function. We have reached the point where we can't just throw our trash out the door or window and expect our community to be livable. I think that I have skills and experience to offer this board, and overall in our community, I would like to see more representatives on our boards and commissions for people who have young children, families with young children. I don't see that representative on many boards in our community, and I think it's important. I have an 8-year-old daughter, and I live with a mind for her future, and solid waste absolutely will be a part of it.
Thank you. What special skills or experiences do you bring to the authority board?
So I have a lot of experience writing and managing grants and budgets. I've managed public budgets for federal grants and state government grants. I've worked with private sector budgets. And quite honestly, I'm a very frugal person by nature. I once sent federal grant money back to the National Science Foundation because I could do the project cheaper than I thought I could. My university didn't like that, but I did. I have an extensive knowledge of food waste in my current job, and that can be as much as a third or more of the total waste stream, so I think that's a really critical thing to look at. And I'm quite honestly, I'm a good team player. I like working with people. I am happy to work with people even when I don't agree with them on an issue, and I'm good at finding compromise. I also bring state representation on food and food waste issues right now. I was appointed earlier this year as one of a 9-member steering committee for the California Food Policy Council, which is a coalition of about 25 food policy councils from across the state.
Thank you. What are the most pressing concerns facing the authority at this time? Please list your concern according to urgency.
I think that the #1 goal for me is for the authority to hire a director and to get back to business with a full staff. I know it's been a couple of years since it's happened, and I think that our government all across every agency needs to be able to function effectively. And we can't do that if we are dwelling on past mistakes that, to my knowledge, have been corrected. So that would be my #1. And I don't want to talk too much about other specifics just because I think so much will change with a new director that everything will be able to sort of go back to full speed, and I would want to see what their priorities would be and move forward with that.
Okay, thank you. Do you think new recycling, composting, waste reduction, disposal, or other programs are needed? And if so, what would they be? If not, why not?
The short answer is yes. I think that recycling and waste reduction programs can help save the county and consumers money. They can reduce truck traffic on Highway 199 with all of our trash having to be hauled to Oregon, and it can minimize the need to move quite so much trash from one state to another, and for me that's a win-win-win. Also, I think that anything that we can do right now in our drought to reduce water usage is good, and typically recycled materials use less water than getting them from virgin sources. And that's, right now we need to look at that at everything we possibly can in this state. I'd also actually like to see some trash awareness campaigns. For example, the last 5th of July, my husband, daughter, and I went down to the beach at Beachfront Park to pick up all of the fireworks debris. And although we filled several bags of it, all of the trash cans there were overflowing with more, and it was very clear that the high tide had already taken a lot out into our harbor. Now that's some pretty nasty stuff in that, and I don't want that in my harbor, and I don't think anybody else wants it in our harbor. So having just some awareness that that stuff needs to go in the trash when you're done shooting off your fireworks would be good. Cigarette butts are another, but that's another story.
Thank you. Well, believe it or not, we've reached the end of the interview formally. Do you have anything further you'd like to add?
I do, just a couple quick things. I said this at an authority meeting before, but I think it bears repeating. Our transfer station is a pleasant place to go. It is clean, it is well organized, and I think that's a sign that the management knows what they're doing, they're good at their job, and they should be allowed to continue it as is. I think it says a lot that my 8-year-old daughter, if she's asked, hey, you want to go to the dump? She says, yes! And she goes every time. And again, I'm just here asking to represent young families, people with young children. Over the long term, I think we need to work on waste solutions that leave them with a healthy planet. And the reality is that it's not just people in the past who threw stuff out. We do it. We all do it every single day. And there are a lot more of us than there used to be. So I think we need to be innovative about how we manage all of that stuff that gets tossed out.
Okay, thank you.
With permission, Mr. Chair, I'm going to do a little microphone swap here because I can see that some of the batteries die.
We all know that I don't comment that much.
Actually, we just don't like your comments.
Just want you to let Mr. Guest know you leave my microphone alone.
Okay.
Here you go.
Okay, thank you. Would you please introduce yourself? I know that I know who you are, but the audience.
My name is Brian Stone.
Very good, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, Brian, we have some, just the interview questions that you've already seen, and we anticipate 5 or 7 minutes.
Okay.
And just relax, it's a pretty informal process,
Okay.
even though it feels formal. Okay, question number 1. What motivated you to seek appointment as Public Commissioner for the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority?
That's a good question. And I hope you can hear me. First of all, I had some friends and acquaintances who asked me to do this. I have extensive public service in my history. You've all seen my resume. And I have 15 years with the state of California. And I think a lot of my skill set can be used by the commission and or board. And I just felt it was a good fit. I'm retired. I don't have anything to do on my schedule other than to watch my flowers grow in my garden. And so I thought it would be kind of nice to fill in some of my spare time and to give to the community. That's the answer to my question.
Thank you, sir. What special skills or experiences would you bring to the authority board?
Okay. I just have a list of about 7 things here I wanted to go over real quick. I'm sorry with respect to my resume. I'm sorry it's so long. I know that you can fall asleep reading it. First off, last job I had for the state of California was the legislative liaison for the California Seismic Safety Commission. Worked with the state legislature dealing with seismic issues. Testified in front of committee hearings. And did whatever it took to get bills through the legislative process, representing the commission. I was also a legislative analyst for the state controller's office. I worked for the controller for 10 years. My primary focus when I was with the controller's office is I just happened to be hired right after Prop 13 happened to pass. And I was a land agent initially and went through the process of going through and having the laws changed with respect to Prop 13. It created a great deal of difficulty with regards to how we were taxing the public. And making a long story short, I was involved directly with the ABH shift. I had a crew of auditors that worked underneath me. And the ABH shift, for those of you who really don't know what that is basically when the state of California decided to step in because of the loss of revenue after Prop 13. They went forward and the state made up the revenue to the school systems, and they shifted the school's portion of the property taxes over to the county and the special districts. And we were in charge of reviewing that process to make sure it went properly. And as was shown in my resume, I noted the fact that, we recovered quite a bit of money for the state of California, as well as made sure that the special districts got their fair share. Because of those changes in the laws, I was tasked with writing the tax collector's reference manual. approximately this thick. It's used by every county tax collector in the state of California, all 55 counties. Next, we have a good feel for how boards operate and how things are supposed to happen. And my experience with the Seismic Safety Commission gives me a great deal of background working with communities as well as the process that's involved with the board itself going through that. So I would say that's my experience in a nutshell. My resume is quite extensive, and take it from there.
Thank you. What are the most pressing concerns facing the authority at this time? And please list your concerns according to urgency.
Well, obviously, the first and most obvious thing is to get your open position filled so that you can do your business going into the future. Secondly, I think the most important thing beyond that is to make sure that the director's position is taken care of. Currently, I know Ted's doing an admirable job in his position, but I think it's partially unfair to him not to, either make him permanent or go on and go through the process. And I think that's important to the board. And the next thing that I would list out here, I'm just going to stop right at number 3. I'm sure we could keep going. Is the threat complexity rating for the landfill with the North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board, getting that issue cleaned up. And I'll leave it there on that question.
Thank you. Do you think new recycling, composting, waste reduction, disposal, or other programs are needed? And if so, what would they be? And if not, why not?
Well, I'm going to give you 2 examples of things, and the answer is yes. I'm going to give you 2 things that I think that the board should look at. One of them is biomass generating systems. That particular thing is something that is being done by the University of California at Davis. They have a demonstration plant that they've gone forward with. They take the solid waste that is can be composted, broken down, put into tanks, put enzymes and other things with it, and they create a situation where you produce methane from it. The methane then produces electricity through boilers and so on, creating the electricity which is pushed back into the grid, thereby making a profit. That's something that we could do. My second thought on this subject would be a total extraction process. Currently, I know that we're using our facilities over here as a transfer point. We have a lot of our waste that could be broken down even further to take things like cardboard, aluminum, iron, others. And I know that we have separate areas where we have the voluntary contributions by people putting them into the specific spots. But I would suggest that we take a look at a process that's used by the county of Placer. They have this total process where they literally have a series of collection sites around the county. They go forward and they bring it all to one facility. They have conveyor lines where the whole process brings through. They extract everything out. The stuff that can be burned, they burn it. Again, they create steam, create electricity from it. That's another process. And thirdly, on this one, I'm just going to add one more thing in my thought process. It's not on my list of stuff. Is the possibility of looking at our old landfill and seeing if there's a way to extract methane from it and use that methane and go forward to, again, either, how would you put it, bottle it so it could be used, and or, again, create a generation site of some kind that would create a revenue stream for the board and for the community. All 3 of these are focused on the idea of creating a revenue stream for the community and another way to help improve, the board itself and the community as a whole. So that's my answer.
Thank you. So, believe it or not, we're at the end of our interview already. Do you have anything further you'd like to add?
Yes, I do. One, I have, obviously, from looking at my resume, a very vast governmental experience that can be utilized by the board. When I was working for the Controller's Office, I was basically trained to be an impartial arbiter in reviewing and doing audits of other people, and especially the counties and how they were dividing up their money. We had to take an impartial point of view and to look at the whole process. Somebody else's point of view on how to read legislation may not coincide with yours directly, but there were instances in the process where I could see where you could interpret something completely differently. And that in and of itself is a good training tool. And I think to sit on the board is something that a person really has to be an impartial arbiter and to look at the processes and everything that's presented to you and make a decision based upon those things. I think as a board member, I could look at all the options in front of me. As a board member, I think I could make decisions that would be in the best interest of the community, be fair and impartial. As a board member, I would pledge to you that I would serve with integrity and fairness for everybody. And like I said earlier, I'm retired, and I have the ability to serve my community, and I would love to give some time back. And thirdly, I believe in the fact that this is a representative democracy. We as individuals represent the public, and that's our most important and sovereign duty, and that is to look at everything, to be open and be transparent. Okay? And I believe that the voices of everyone should be heard, and at the same time, I think that the least among us is just as important as the most important among us. That if everyone has a voice, everyone should have their vote, and I believe in that principle. And that's why.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Appreciate that. Is that too soft?
Yeah, we're gonna
Mr. Baldwin needs to use the bathroom.
Just want to ask me clarifying questions about that.
How do you follow that?
I'll wait over here, and when he comes here, then I'll.
Mary, we're having a little bit of hard time hearing people, so if you talk, would you get it near your speech there?
There?
Thank you, that
Okay.
would be better. Let's just wait till. Well, we.
No pressure there.
How about those giants? You got the ring?
I went to the ring center.
Hang on to that. I thought it was one you put on your head.
They're only 40,000.
You got one at 40,000, that's pretty special. Okay. Well, Mary, why don't we go ahead and go forward? And he won't hear very much.
Okay.
You know. This is Mary Wilson, and she's our next candidate. And Mary, you've been provided the questions. We anticipate 5 to 7 minutes. And so I'll go ahead and ask them, and just relax like you are. So, okay. So what motivated you to seek appointment as the public commissioner for the Delmarva Solid Waste Management Authority?
Well, after having worked on the Solid Waste Authority for these past 4 years, I'm very familiar with the solid waste issues, and I'm motivated to carry on my duties as public commissioner. I invested a lot of time educating myself on the duties, financial position, the laws that pertain to the agency. And of course, as a resident and mother, you know, I want a healthy, sanitary community. And as a business owner for over 25 years, I feel like I have a good understanding of the balance needed for both business and residential ratepayers.
Thank you. What special skills or experiences would you bring to the authority board?
Well, again, I've been involved the last 4 years, not as a commissioner, but particularly with the solid waste issues. And my background, I have in business administration with a concentration in finance from Sacramento State. And I've been a private business owner. I have fiscally sound business practices. I'm familiar with budget analysis, cost and benefit assessments, quality cash control measures, and I also have successfully managed the demolition and closure of an old gas station in Crescent City. I've worked extensively with the Superfund cleanup and also with the Regional Water Quality Control Board, which give me a little extra insight into the agency as well as the laws.
Okay, thank you. What are the most pressing concerns facing the authority at this time? And please list your concern according to urgency.
The number one thing, bar none, is keeping the contract with White City. And that comes up this year, and it definitely, we have got to renew that in order to continue to have reasonable rates for dumping. Also, our pressing issue is we need to move forward with actions to reduce the A1 threat complexity rating at the landfill. And by doing that, we would be able to save a substantial amount of money. Of course, another pressing issue is for a new director. I feel Mr. Ward's doing a great job, and but I do feel we need an employee with some strong financial background that would be a good help for him. In addition, I think that the authority needs to establish clear and measurable goals, short, medium, and long-term objectives to support our purpose and our mission. I think that would be valuable for staff as well as for the board.
Thank you. Do you think new recycling, composting, waste reduction, disposal, or other programs are needed? And if so, what would they be? And if not, why not?
So in looking at this question, really kind of look at, is there a home for all the waste streams? And in thinking of that, you know, Julindra currently accepts plastic, aluminum, cardboard, glass, office paper. We have a program for hazardous waste. We used oils, and we recently established a program for paints. And there's also a program for white goods or appliances in place at this point. For green goods, which is of course the yard waste, that's in place. We take wood, and then also mixed waste. So those are all the different waste streams, and I think that product stewardship is working well in Del Norte County. We have electronics, carpet, paint, and now we'll be adding mattresses. And so I really can't identify any streams that we are not attending. So my big concern is more for the green waste that we are currently shipping to Arcata. Since we've lost the Hambro facility, it's kind of a fledgling new vendor, and it seems kind of risky. And if that were to go away, our green waste would have to be hauled to White City, which would be at regular mixed rate fees, and that would be very expensive. So, and the other concern I have, of course, is if Julindra were to drop out of the game, and I just want to say, you know, Jordan's aging, so I don't know, but it gets such a vital component for us in Del Norte County. And I personally feel Recology is doing a superb job in complying with their contract for the programs, and particularly education with Lori Poole. And I feel Del Norte's in good shape with the programs we currently have in place, and we're definitely more than in compliance with state laws, and in many places far beyond state mandates.
Thank you. So we're at the end of our brief interview. Do you have anything further you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'm hoping you'll take into consideration various ways I've helped improve the authority over this past couple of years. I just want to list a couple of areas. Basically, when it came down, I was very shocked when the county auditor had taken all $225,000 cash out of our account, and I spent many hours actually going over the journal entries and tracking that back to find out if it was appropriate, it had already been done, because there was a new auditor, and so tracked that back. It ended up we only had $198,000 taken out, which was better. I had done a financial analysis over the last 9 years for each of for the authority on my own to see what type of business shape it was in. Helped to halt unnecessary enforcement there was an AB 341 and any penalties to community. I helped put forward a new mission statement, researched those and presented those to the board. Publicly, just recently brought to light that when the recology supervisor was in town about the shape of the garbage trucks in Del Norte County, and they now have one newer truck has come up to Del Norte County, and I have heard that another truck is due here soon, so there should be 3. So those rusty old, I don't want to call them bucket of bullets, but pretty much eyesores, getting that changed. In addition, what I'd like to add is I think picking the best person for the job, you need an independent person that can help bring balance to the board. And what I mean by that is if the board feels they need help in financial areas, then you should get somebody that has a strong financial background, which I think a balanced approach is what's necessary, and someone who's up to speed on issues is a wiser choice. And if you want someone with a proven track record, it's kind of been a saying in my family that you don't really know anybody until you either live with them or you work with them. And so you know that me because you've worked with me, and I understand I'm comfortable working with a multi-million-dollar budget. I educate myself and prepare myself with regards to permanent laws and issues. I don't fly by the seat of my pants. And you've seen how I bring an independent perspective to the agency. So as I just want to say, because I'm a business owner, a mother, and a private citizen, so I have many different points of view from within our community. And I do want to live in a healthy, sanitary community and understand the need for balance. So I have a home in the county, business in the city, and trying to understand the issues of both because I live in both. And I just believe it's important to remember that we don't need a board full of members who agree on all the issues, and that having healthy debate makes for better decision making in the long run. And I would appreciate your consideration and support in appointing me again as your public member. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. This is Mr. Alexander Fallman.
In the flesh.
In the flesh, good. Okay, thank you for being here, Mr. Fallman. You've seen the questions. We'll take 5 or 7 minutes to go ahead and answer. Go ahead and talk directly into the microphone. We're having a little hard time picking some of that up. And just relax, and we look forward to hearing your responses. And again, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Okay, so the first question. What motivated you to seek appointment as Public Commissioner of the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority?
So this semester at College of the Redwoods, I'm taking 2 classes pertaining to the environment. These classes have evoked in me a deep passion to protect the environment and reduce humanity's ecological footprint. I see the Solid Waste Management Authority as an agent of change, and I wish to transform Del Norte County into a zero-waste community. The next
Okay.
question, yeah.
Next question? That's a good way to do it. Next question.
Yeah. Continue the grilling.
What special skills or experiences would you bring to the authority board?
So while many people may see my youth as a liability, I see as being my young age as being able to offer a few unique assets. So number one is that gleaming vigor for learning, and number two, again, since I'm a young man, I'm kind of new to the political scene here, so that really puts me above, or rather below, given my height, the prominent political fray that dominates this board. This board needs a fresh approach, not an old direction. That fresh approach cannot be implemented by people harboring old political grudges.
Next question?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, what are the most pressing concerns facing the authority at this time? Please list your concerns according to urgency.
So this authority faces three fundamental concerns that should always be in the back of your mind whenever you're making a decision. How do we protect the environment, provide services, there we go, and save people money? I think the most obvious thing that's facing this authority today that could just be fixed probably next month really is what to do with the executive director's position. Personally, I think that position should not be contracted out to somebody who won't give a damn whether they have a job at the end of their contract, and should be merged with the programs manager's position. Mr. Ward has demonstrated that he can do both of those jobs well, and I think that approach can save the authority a little bit of cash on the side as well.
Okay, thank you. Do you think new recycling, composting, waste reduction, disposal, or other programs are needed? And if so, what would they be? And if not, why not?
So recognizing the transformative nature of the authority, I do believe there is room for new programs. I think the authority should assist businesses with buying recycled materials. The authority ought to set up a rural reusable exchange. I think buildings scheduled to be demolished through controlled burns should be assessed by the authority for their reuse value. That wood and doorknobs can go somewhere and shouldn't just be recycled and thrown away. I also think that we should make illegal dumping a civil offense and use the money from the fines for operation costs. All of these ideas can be found in the Zero Waste Plan, which was written by Mr. Ward actually in 2000. And as a public commissioner, or as the public commissioner, I plan on continuing to read that plan, understand that plan, and implement that plan. And I strongly urge all of you to do the same.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, do you have anything further you'd like to add? Or the last question.
Already. So I applied for this job to make a difference. Frankly, I believe if you're a public official and you don't want to make a difference, then why the hell did you run for office in the first place? I want this job so I can inspire young people like myself to get involved in government and care about the environment. There are 8 other applicants who are all qualified to become part of a faceless bureaucracy. The applicant standing before you is qualified to transform the authority to make it into a real force of substantial reform in Delaware County.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for being here again. You're welcome to sit in the audience or you can go back to the other room if you want.
Can I use the bathroom?
You can stay there if you want. Yeah, we knew you were coming out. No, I'm kidding. How are you, Pat? Thank you. This is Patricia Black, and she's here to answer the same questions everyone else has. You've been provided the questions. We expect the questioning to take 4 to 7 minutes, and just relax and do what you do. Okay, thank you. So, everybody ready? So, what motivated you to seek appointment as Public Commissioner for the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority?
Well, I was raised to worry about things like solid waste. It seems odd, but in my family, we tried not to create garbage. That was a really big deal for us. And a lot of people think we're crazy, but I'm thrilled to find that there were 5 other candidates who are equally crazy about these kinds of issues. I've been on the Solid Waste Advisory Task Force for 2 years, and that's been a learning, growing experience. And so when this opportunity arose, I thought, wow, here's another chance to be able to do something in the same area that would be a service to the community.
Thank you. What special skills or experience would bring you to the authority board?
Well,
Would you bring it?
will they bring me to?
Sorry.
Yeah, okay, so I'm retired from Social Security, which means that I am an expert on rules and regulations. I'm bilingual in English and Spanish. I have a teaching certificate I taught for 12 years at the high school, as Mr. Holly knows. And I have a lot of connections in the community, both through my students, through my clients at Social Security, and now that I work at the clinic, through the people I meet there, not to mention other connections. I've served on a couple of boards, small boards, the board for our church and also the Denaka board. And again, I have those 2 years on the council.
Thank you. What are the most pressing concerns facing the authority at this time? Please list your concerns according to urgency.
So I think the first thing would be to hire a director. I think it's important to have both a director and a program manager because their areas of expertise and skill sets are different. And although Mr. Ward has done an excellent job of trying to wear 2 hats on one head, I don't think it's really fair to expect someone to do that. And second, I think it's really important for us to continue to connect and reconnect with other agencies in the state, like the Rural Council of Rural Counties, because there's so many things that we can do better if we collaborate with other agencies. For example, the marine flare issue, we shouldn't be solving that alone, and I'm sure we won't be. I think it should be part of collaborating with the whole state and other people, or at least the whole western edge of this state.
Thank you. Do you think new recycling, composting, waste reduction, disposal, or other programs are needed? And if so, what would they be? And if not, why not?
Well, yes, I think so. Because we're not, we still have garbage. And as long as we're still generating garbage, we're filling up the landfill and it will reach its capacity and it'll keep going like that. So I am not sure exactly which programs should come in. I think part of it might be that we need to analyze what is going into the waste stream and find out how to stop it at its source. So I was just thinking about my own personal home garbage. We probably put together maybe 1 grocery bag, not full per week, but we have another bag about this big of cat litter. And so I just went online and discovered that there are these fantastic ways, because they keep saying it's compostable, but you're not going to put cat litter in your vegetable garden, right? So there's this whole other thing. Now, I don't know if that's workable, but there's just all these little things that we could figure out that might do something. Like the food waste, I know that's not feasible at the moment, but we just need to keep being aware of what's out there and how we might be able to implement it. That's all.
Thank you. Do you have anything further you'd like to add?
Yes, even though I think that the authority does a great job of education, I still think that there's wide open opportunities for more education. I was at a fundraising dinner at Pine Grove School, and they had these drink glass cups that were plastic, and they had their little triangle on them, and they had a recycling thing, and they had a garbage thing, and do you know where all the plastic cups went? They went in the garbage. So, there's all these opportunities out there that obviously the staff isn't going to be able to go to every fundraising dinner, but just maybe there are other ways that we could continue to educate the community. And that's all.
Okay. Thank you, Pat. Go ahead and have a seat. So, finally, did I give that back to you?
Yes.
Okay.
I have not handed it out. We do have written responses from Mr. Weil. So I'm sure you'd like to address those.
Actually, I'd like to talk to my fellows. Do you think we'd like to read his responses? briefly? We can certainly hand it around, but it seems like the audience may want to hear
I think we should
what
read
we
it.
have to do. Mr. Watson could not be here because of another conflict, so but he still wanted to be considered. So while my colleagues are reading it, I'll go ahead and read the responses for everyone else. Mr. Watson said the following. What motivated you to seek the appointment of Public Commissioner for the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority? Two good friends whose judgment I respect urged me to apply. Number two, what special skills or experiences would you bring to the authority board? In Shasta County, for 25 years with the Director of Public Works, who had lots of solid waste experience, I worked to develop a real good program there. I was instrumental in developing operations plans for the transfer stations in the landfill. I also worked with Simpson Paper to develop a landfill for them as well. I have initiated and administered a stormwater program for 16 powerhouses for PG&E and wrote oil spill and hazardous materials and stormwater sampling plans for those facilities. What are the most pressing concerns facing the authority at this time? Please list your concerns according to urgency. First, the exorbitant fees charged by the RWQCB.
For regional water quality control.
Thank you. For the closed landfill, and second, the expense of water quality monitoring and lab analysis required by that same agency. 4, do you think new recycling, composting, waste reduction, disposal, or other programs are needed? If so, what would they be? If not, why not? I think we should not pass up any such opportunity if they make a profit or even break even. If there is not a savings, we should consider the avoided expenses of paying to transport and dispose of these materials as waste. Number 5, do you have anything further you would like to add? Mr. Watson says, some of my influences during my work history as LEA and working in the Del Norte Health Department included bad things which I prevented. In part to my efforts, Del Norte County does not have a Superfund site and a water treatment plant that was purported to cost $1 million, which the county was expected to operate, maintain, and eventually pay for. We also do not have 10 wells at the landfill that would have mixed to 2 water-bearing zones. I can feel myself losing it. We also do not have an underground gas piping system with the associated leaks that have caused problems in other communities. Also, I worked with the competing interests involved in developing California swimming pool regulations. I also was involved in the resolution of how to address the issues associated with rice stubble burning, thereby reducing complaints to the Air Resources Board by over 90%. So, those in a nutshell are Mr. Watson's responses. So I would ask you to give us just a couple of minutes to do our informal rating, and please avoid the interest in humming the Jeopardy theme.
Exactly.
Can I sing Take Me Out to the Ball Game instead?
Yeah.
Yeah. We could have groups. Oh.
All the time.
It's a lot of people. I know.
Thank you. So as stated early in the meeting, we're going to ask if anyone has any public comment while Ted tabulates the results. Any public comment?
Maybe not.
On, I would think any public comment on this particular item, because we've already had regular public comment. No? Okay, then talk amongst yourselves.
You know, I mean, the real bulk of the parents and the school district
Just making sure, making sure.
it isn't. So, then
That's part of this city, not the county.
with, you know, obviously the teacher, the first thought is, oh my gosh, they want to be doing with them. That was income consider the teachers. Hate them for it, or compensate them somewhere, and when it actually
So they're going into direct also.
So,
It's the only way to work.
So obviously, it's a kind of competition balance. And then you want to
Yeah, sure, they'll be. You know how, you got.
All right.
I got 7 tries. I got 3. We're trying to get outside. I can imagine having that.
Chair, do you have numerical results?
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have the results that will only give us a little bit of guidance, but the results are in. We'll go ahead and announce those, please.
The results are as follows. The top average score, and this is an average of the 4 votes that were received. Patricia Black and Angela Glore have average scores of 7.5. Second is Brian Stone, who has an average score of 7.25. Third is Mary Wilson, who has an average score of 6.5, followed by Alexander Fallman at 5.5 and Dale Watson at 3.5.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, I'd ask the commissioners if they have anything they'd like to say. Any comments or questions? I'd only like to make a comment about what a nice problem we have in front of us. All of you were eloquent and caring, and I think we're going to do well with anyone that comes on. And I want to thank everyone else ahead of time, because unfortunately we don't have places for all 6 of them. But, so with that said, we'll go ahead and start the motions. Now, Rosenberg's Rules of Orders will win out. So we may have a motion, we may have substitute motions. We don't know how this is going to go. But I will, this does happen in public, and I was reminded about the need for this transparency. So it's difficult, but this is the way we'll be proceeding. So I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we consider Angela Glore as our public commissioner.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we consider Angela Glore as the public commissioner. Any discussion? No? Oh,
She was which is the order of chronology?
At scores 7.5, Patricia Black and Angela Gore were tied.
Raise your hand, Angie.
Sorry, I'm in the back.
I move we close nominations.
Okay, it's been moved that nominations be closed.
Second.
It's been seconded. So any discussion on that? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Very good. So I think we're at a place now where we can pull the vote.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I looked the wrong direction.
Hiding way back over here. Commissioner Gitlin?
Now, the motion is to close the motion, and now what is the motion just to approve Angela Gore as a public member? I want to make sure I'm hearing this right.
The last motion that was made was to close the nominations.
Okay, what's the,
Oh, we did it all aye on that one.
Then, go ahead, and you want to repeat the motion?
Nomination.
Want to repeat the motion?
Yeah, the motion was to consider Angela Glore as our public member for the commission.
Thank you. And the second? On that second, it continues to be seconded by Mrs. McClure. So, saying that, would you please poll the vote now?
Commissioner Gitlin?
yes,
Commissioner Gastineau?
Yes.
Commissioner McClure?
Yes.
And Commissioner Holly?
Yes.
Chairman Holly?
Yes. So, thank you again. All of you are welcome to stay to the very end. And again, thank you for your decorum, and I think it was a good process. Mary, I want to thank you for your service on the board. We know how hard you work. And please plan on attending a future date when we'll have party this spring. Thank you again for everything. Okay, so we're going on to our regular agenda then.
Ms. Glore may take her seat at the back.
Oh, yes, Ms. Glore, come on up.
Support.
I'm sitting here. I do have to warn you that I can't stay for the whole meeting. I have another meeting.
Okay, very good.
Today.
Understood. We do that for you. But again, welcome up here.
Thank you.
And you do know everything that's in the agenda pack?
I looked at it.
Okay. So, we'll move forward with our agenda, if I can find it. The next matter on our agenda, I think is effectively disposed of, and that had to do with Mary Wilson's extension. Were we not able to come to a conclusion? So, again, we've taken care of that. So, moving on the consent agenda, we have approval of the minutes from the regular session Tuesday, March 17th, acknowledge and filing letter of March 18, 2005, sent to Cal Recycling requesting reduction in multiplier. Approval of payment to Delaware County Engineering Department for invoice 2015-06 in the amount of $5,593.03. Acknowledge and file of April 1, 2015, received from Sequoia Park Zoo a letter, and Sequoia Park Zoo Conservation Advisory Committee and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in gratitude for the Authority Board's support for their recent broom bash and cleanup at Pacific Shores. And finally, approval of budget transfer in the amount of $3,770. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda? Okay, seeing no public comment, I'll bring it back to the board.
motion to approve?
Okay, the consent agenda has been moved to approve.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, would you please poll the vote?
Commissioner McClure?
Yes.
Commissioner Gastineau?
Yes.
Commissioner Gitlin?
Yes.
Commissioner Glore?
Yes.
And Chairman Holly?
Yes. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, I'll have to excuse myself.
Okay, thank you. Did a good job on that, though.
Oh, thank you. Well, my kid and my husband were part of the broom bash too.
Okay.
Joy and
Yes, please. That's great. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, going on to discussion and action items. Landfill post closure. Report regarding meetings with the director and staff of the North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board regarding the threat complexity rating for the Crescent City landfill, the associated WDR fee, and order and monitoring and reporting program 97-90. Mr. Ward.
This is honestly probably a more complex issue than we have time for. So I'll do my best to summarize, but had a meeting with Matthias St. John, who's the Executive Director of the North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board, as well as David Leland and Gina Morrison on April 10th in Santa Rosa to discuss our waste discharge requirements fee and the, what options we have regarding potential appeal. The bottom line is that it looks like we might have a way forward in that the staff of the North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board acknowledges that they feel like this fee is exorbitant for this size of an agency. They also feel somewhat constrained in that their current parameters for assessing such a fee does not consider the size of the facility nor the size of the community. And so consequently, we have a 1A threat complexity rating, which makes our landfill fees as high as any in the state for a closed facility. So they're willing to support our appeal to the State Water Resources Board, which sets this fee, that there should be some additional flexibility based on the size of the community or the size of the facility. In addition, we discussed the possibility of doing an additional engineering assessment of the data that we have collected, considering that we have drilled 2 new wells to try to establish a better baseline of data. So staff's recommendation is to direct staff to draft a scope of work for an engineering assessment of the 1A threat complexity rating associated with the Crescent City landfill and present that scope of work as part of a request for proposals at a subsequent authority meeting to review and approve prior to release.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your work on that. Okay, we'll move on to number 4.
But
yes.
If you want me to do that, I need that vote. Otherwise, I don't.
So, anyone there to make a motion?
What is the, so the action item is what, Mr. Ward?
The concurrent
I read this over, I
direction.
just want to make sure every public knows what you want us to do.
Yes, it's written under the staff recommendation. It is that the board directs staff to draft a scope of work for an engineering assessment of the 1A threat complexity rating associated with the Crescent City landfill and present that scope of work as part of a request for proposals at a subsequent authority meeting for review and approval prior to release.
Let's look at the alternatives here. Ted, read the, if you would, for the public's benefit.
Sure.
The alternatives on number 1, there's 2 alternatives: take no action.
Sure.
Or direct, have the authority direct staff to pay the outstanding balance.
Right. Part of this issue is, of course, we've only made a partial payment on a, we've paid $30,625 on an invoice for $70,781. And the State Water Resources Board could potentially assess fines of up to $1,000 per day that we haven't paid the full amount. So there is some risk involved here. But the alternatives are to take no action. And in that case, taking no action is equivalent to accepting the rating that we have, and we would have that additional amount due. Or you could, and then we're still vulnerable because we haven't paid the outstanding balance. The other option would be to direct staff to pay the outstanding balance. And we owe approximately $11,000. We would need to add approximately $11,000 to our current fee for, our current budget line for permit fees.
All right, so again, they could threaten, they could have fines, but they haven't done that. Now, what's the process of appeal to have this, this amount mitigated? Because I would want to hear back from the agency on our claim to lower the threat complexity and therefore lower the entire fee. Have they communicated?
Well, as I was just describing the meeting that we had regarding this very issue, but regarding the appeals process, there is almost nothing written about how that appeal process should work, because part of the challenge is that the Regional Water Quality Control Board sets the threat and complexity rating, and that is the basis for the fees set by the state agency. So you can appeal the threat and complexity rating, but they're saying they don't have the wherewithal to change that because they can't consider the size of the community. Or you could appeal the balance of the fees, and they're going to say, but we're trying to make our budget. So it's a challenge in that you have 2 agencies that you're dealing with in 2 locations, to try to counter resolution.
Well, I'm confused. I'm confused because it's public money. And I'm not so quick to throw in and say, let's pay the balance of this. I think there's some inconsistency in the state level on this process of the appeal. If it's even possibly to be successful, writing a letter to one agency and no, we answer to this agency, and they're kind of playing ping pong back and forth. Am I misreading this? I mean, do we have an appeal process that can be vetted?
As I described, there is no very clear appeal process. We have been essentially appealing this for about 3 years, and that appeals process has not been clarified.
Well, I'm out of my comfort zone without getting a clear answer from dueling agencies at the state level at the expense of spending this extra money. So I'd like another letter sent. I think so. The way you're explaining it to me, it appears I'm not ready to pay this public money on this until I'm clear from the state agency that this matter can be vetted and heard clearly. So I'm of the opinion that we should send another direct letter and get a response.
We sent a letter. That letter precipitated the meeting, which I am summarizing now.
And
we can have further written correspondence, but that written correspondence does not follow any written appeal process. So it's not clear where we go.
What you're asking is permission to draft a scope of work for an engineering assessment.
That's correct.
At that meeting, did they think that would be helpful?
Absolutely.
That's something that they would like to see before they really talk to us.
That is why I'm recommending it, yes.
Okay.
I concur with that, but I want to know about these alternatives, and I think I'm not clear we have an alternative from the state level, which is going to actually come into a decision. So I can see the validity of going forward with the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. So any public comment on this? Okay, seeing none, we'll come back. Other discussion?
I move that we direct staff to draft a scope of work for an engineering assessment of the 1A threat complexity rating associated with the Crescent City landfill, and then present the scope of work as part of the request for proposal at a subsequent authority meeting for review and approval prior to release.
Okay, thank you. So, moving on, we have nothing. Is there, oh, I thought, it's been a long night already.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I would just like to say that by having this scope of work and having the data, it's going to give us a stronger case at the State Water Board. And it's my resources, they're under the Department of Resources, right? Or are they their own standalone?
Well, yes, I need to. They're under the State Water Resources Board, and I understand it's confusing, and I will try to make it as clear as I can, but the Regional Water Quality Control Board specifically suggested we get this engineering study, and then when we file our appeal to the State Water Resources Board, we attach those together. And then they were willing to flank us, and it makes for a stronger case in front of us.
And we know that if we run into a snag, we've got Assemblyman Wood is on the Resources Committee, so we can ask him for assistance. And then John Laird is also very, as the Secretary of Resources, is also very sympathetic to small communities. So I think that we are making inroad, but it's taken all of this time. But without the data, it's going to be hard to walk into a hearing in Sacramento and just say, well, it's because we're poor. You know, that's going to play, but it's important that we be more than just small and poor, also that we have a landfill that doesn't meet some of the standards of up and down the coast of the 1As.
Yeah, and I just want to say, we're just going for your scope of work is to get an RFP, so we don't know exactly how much the engineering costs right now.
That's correct.
So that's going to come back to us later. So we'll know how much we're actually going to spend to get this data, which helps us hopefully reduce this rate. So it's not overbearing on that.
Plus, we'll rationalize why we need to use some of that money that they're going to charge us for the engineering report.
I think that's an excellent point. That's really part of what we need to do, is to indicate that while we may not be paying the full fee, some of the agency's resources are still addressing this problem beyond the fees that we've paid.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, then I'll call for the vote. Would you please poll the vote?
I'm sorry, I missed the second. I thought somebody was speaking in my ear just a minute ago.
Ron?
I'm
Yes.
sorry, Ron Esposito? So Commissioner McClure?
Yes.
Commissioner Gastineau?
Yes.
Commissioner Gitlin?
Yes.
And Chairman Holly?
Yes. Okay, thank you. And thank you again for your work on that. That was a long haul for you. Collection and franchise, we have no items under the transfer station. It says no items, but it's discussion and possible action regarding the 5-year permit review for the Del Norte County Transfer Station.
Well, sorry about trying to split the difference there. There is actually no action required on this item, in that it is part of our standard process that we have to do a permit review every 5 years, and so we start that process by submitting this paperwork to the local enforcement agency, which in this case is Huamua of the Del Norte County Environmental Health Department, and I'm just informing you that we've begun that process.
Thank you. Any questions? Any public comment? So, moving on to number 6, other general solid waste authority matters. Number 6.1 is a discussion and possible action regarding election of authority vice chair, secretary, and treasurer controller. We don't have the full board. I know we wanted to do that, and yet I'm real reticent to go another month without a vice chair. I mean, I appear to be a good help. But, pardon?
Vacation?
Yeah. So,
Well, the vice chair actually has to come from somebody from the county, because they will have control of the board next year. So we have the 2 members here.
That's true.
Question on that reading. Does it necessarily have to say spelled out that the vice chair, the alternate? I know the alternation of the chair position is city county. Is that, Council Rice? Is that actually written in our bylaws, or is it more traditional?
The chair and the vice chair have to come from the member agencies, the city and the county. I think the switching them has just been more of a practice. I don't believe it's spelled out in the bylaws.
Okay, so is there any stipulation that perhaps the public member cannot be the vice chair?
That's correct. The chair and the vice chair must be from the city and the county.
Okay.
The secretary can be the public member, as Mary Wilson.
Okay. Any public comments on this? Seeing none, we'll come back. Do we have a motion?
Well, I'll move that Martha McClure becomes vice chair.
I'll be so proud of that, but I'll
Or,
second.
right now.
Okay, I'll second that nomination. So it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Yes, there is. I'm going to oppose this nomination for a number of reasons. I'm afraid that my esteemed colleague has demonstrated a long history of lack of impartiality on issues that are divisive, and I'm concerned that the gulf is going to get wider. I'm concerned that these issues are going to surface in ways that will divide this authority even further as we move forward. There are a number of issues that concern me, including several years. I'm going to walk down memory lane for a moment. 4 years ago, when at a Board of Supervisor meeting, I was an observer of this when I watched someone in the audience come approach the dais and speak on the issue of solid waste. Supervisor McClure was interrupted his 3 minutes, which he shouldn't do in any circumstances. And when that individual asked to resume, Supervisor McClure walked out. This is on record. And I don't think it's appropriate to just walk over these issues and not acknowledge them, what they are. That we have to have someone here who demonstrates the history of impartiality. There are other issues that concern me. Is the Solid Waste Authority is one which Supervisor McClure has a long history, and this is her baby. And I appreciate that. And I see that it's being remade, and I heard someone say you have to look forward, not into the past. So I'm concerned about these issues and the direction in which we're going that will be more divisive and more not conducive to healing. And I'm going to vote no on that nomination for vice chair.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? I can only say I felt comfortable making that second in the motion just because of Mrs. McClure's extensive knowledge of solid waste management issues in our community. I think her expertise, there'll be no learning curve virtually, and hopefully we'll all act in a manner that is sufficient in decorum, and I'm confident that that will occur. So, if there's no other comments, would you please poll the vote?
Commissioner Gitlin?
No.
Commissioner Gastineau?
Yes.
Commissioner McClure?
Yes.
And Chairman Hawley?
Yes. Thank you, and congratulations. The treasurer controller position then, would we go forward with that?
You certainly can. Under our, I believe it's the JPA agreement, the treasurer controller needs to be a certified public accountant, and Rich Taylor has filled that position for many years.
Okay. Oh, and then I skipped the secretary. I wonder if we should have the fifth person before we do the secretary. Is there any opposition to that? Is there any need for a secretary before that?
Oh, well, we can get by through this meeting without a secretary.
Very good. And so I would suggest that we not elect the secretary in the event that Ms. Gore might be interested in doing so. But the treasurer controller, it would seem like we could make decisions on that tonight.
And that is a non-voting member.
It's a non-voting member, and to date it's been Mr. Taylor?
That's correct.
Okay. So any public comment on the election of a treasurer controller? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Any nominations?
I'll nominate Richie Taylor as the controller treasurer.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that Mr. Taylor continue as the treasurer controller of the Solid Waste Management Authority. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, would you please poll the vote?
Commissioner McClure?
Yes.
Commissioner Gitlin?
Yes.
Commissioner Gastineau?
Yes.
Chairman Hawley?
Yes. Okay, thank you. And we'll bring the secretary election back next meeting. Okay, number 6.2, discussion and possible action regarding the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority Resolution number 2015-02, opting to affirm an exemption from the requirement of mandatory commercial organics recycling. Mr. Ward.
AB 1826 essentially requires that businesses that generate a specified amount of organic waste per week arrange for recycling services for that organic waste starting in April 2016. This law also specifies that communities with a population under 70,000 are eligible for at least a temporary exemption from this requirement. The Del Norte County Board of Supervisors has already passed a similar resolution, and because of the significant economy of scale costs associated with creating a composting operation in a rural, rainy environment such as we have, staff recommend adoption of Del Norte County, the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority Resolution 2015-02.
I move that we approve,
I just like public comment first, if we could. Any public comment on this action? Okay, very good.
I move that we approve Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority Resolution number 2015-02, and I ask for a yes vote.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve Authority Resolution number 2015-02, opting to affirm an exemption from the requirements of mandatory commercial organics recycling. Any further discussion? Okay, please poll the vote.
Commissioner Gastineau?
Yes.
Commissioner McClure?
Yes.
Commissioner Gitlin?
Yes.
And Chairman Hawley?
Yes. Okay, so we're moving through now. Number 6.3, Discussion and possible action regarding the status of the authority's 14-15 budget and expenditures, the draft authority budget for fiscal year 15-16, and review and budget approval process, and the review and budget approval process. Mr. Ward.
So, this is all a little tight, but under our JPA, we are required to submit the draft authority budget to both the city and the county for comment. We are to receive written comments from each of those bodies by May 15th, so that we can get our budget adopted according to timeline. So consequently, that forces our budget consideration onto this meeting, despite other things happening. So I've drafted the budget, which is significantly a status quo budget. It keeps the same staffing levels as our current staffing chart, even though, for instance, we do not have a director and we're not fully fleshed out in terms of GA staff at this point. It is the same. It is the payroll information from the Delaware County auditor based on the approved staffing chart. Things that are different in this budget include an aerial survey of the Crescent City landfill that we're required to do every 5 years by the Regional Water Quality Control Board. And probably the biggest significant change to this budget is we are planning on maintaining the transfer station floor. The transfer station floor is the working surface of that facility, and materials are unloaded there and excavators are used to drag it. It's pushed across. And essentially, about 3 inches of certain portions of the floor have worn away. And so it costs quite a bit to put the hardened, reinforced epoxy concrete covering in order to try to maintain such a facility. But thankfully, Humboldt Waste Management Authority has recently gone through that. So I used their per square foot costs and an estimate from Joel Wallen regarding how much of our transfer station needs to be fixed. And I've incorporated that into the budget. That money will come from our depreciation. Unlike the city and the county and most private entities, we actually have to fund depreciation with cash. Well, that builds up our cash balance, but I've confirmed with the Delaware County auditor that this kind of expense is just what that depreciation money is set aside for. So I put that into the budget so that we can plan on doing that required maintenance in the coming year. But it is a significant cost. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any public comment on this? Okay, any technical questions for Ward? For Mr. Ward?
No, my only question is when they redo the floor, how long will the transfer station be out of commission?
I think the short answer is no time at all, because we will try to do it in phases and try to work around the areas that we are working. And Humboldt County said that they were able to do that as well.
Yeah, it's off topic, but it just came to my mind.
Well, I look at the size of those machines they have to use on that floor. Yeah, I'm amazed it's held up this long. So I appreciate you being proactive so that we don't have a blighted transfer station. So,
burn it down.
Any other questions about the budget for Mr. Ward? Anything you'd like to consider? Or that was the one that jumped out to me. That was the piece.
So staff recommendation is to direct staff to transmit the proposed budget, if there are no further comments or revisions, to Delaware County Board of Supervisors and Crescent City Council.
Okay. We have a request under the circumstances. Mary, go ahead.
I'm sorry, when you asked for public comment, I didn't even get a chance to, it was so quick, I didn't make a comment real quick.
This is Mary Wilson.
I just wanted to bring to everybody's attention that this budget is an increase over expenses of over $52,000. So I kind of went through and I just underlined, all the things where it's increasing, and then I deducted the decreases. So I know that you just made a motion that you were going to move forward with a study to try and reduce the complexity rating, which will cost more money. But again, this is $52,000 over what it was. It's grown, so over what the cuts are. So that's something I feel that this board needs to be We need to understand, and then plus the additional expenses that will come from another study, so.
Thank you, Mary. As I look at the balance and then the question mark, it looks like, at least from it being balanced, we're within $3.
This is a balanced budget. The previous budget, there was a $3 thing that you're saying, but this proposed budget is a balanced budget.
So even though the expenditures are more, there are revenues to
Exactly.
offset those.
Correct.
Okay. So if there's no other discussion, we'll move on. Oh, no, you need some action on this. So any possible action on this matter?
Motion to direct staff to transmit the proposed budget to the County Board of Supervisors, Crescent City Council, as required under the JPA, and return with any written comments that are adopted by either of those two governances.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to go ahead and move forward with the authority budget and have it transmitted to the city council. Any other information needs to come forward? Okay, would you please call the vote?
Commissioner Gitlin,
Yes.
Commissioner Gastineau,
Yes.
Commissioner Secor,
Yes.
and Chairman Holly.
Yes, thank you. Directors and treasurers reports. Agenda items 7.1 through 7.5 are provided for information only. The director's report.
And I'm very aware that our supervisors will need to leave for a meeting, so I will make this shorter than I probably should. But the summary is that we remain short-staffed, that we're doing the best we can. We have hired an account clerk who was our refuse site attendant. So Catherine Brewer is now our account clerk, and she's doing a fine job. But as a result, we are even shorter staffed in terms of refuse site attendants, and I'm grateful that we are hiring refuse site attendants as we speak. Or those interviews will occur later this week. Somewhat symbolic of what's happening is that while during this past month, I did go down to a conference, a statewide conference organized by Cal Recycle regarding household hazardous waste, and took that opportunity to organize a meeting regarding marine flares. At that meeting, we had over 18 folks, including representatives from the Department of Toxic Substances Control, Cal Recycle, and several other agencies, as well as folks who ran hazardous waste programs across different California and coastal counties. So there was a lot of momentum there, and we had a subsequent statewide conference call with members of Boating and Waterways, as well as Department of Toxic Substances Control. And while that conference call was starting, and they were very interested in what happened at the statewide meeting, I was pulled away because there was an injury at the Klamath transfer station. And so our administrative assistant and our new account clerk needed to go down there to keep our Klamath transfer station open, and I needed to change duties. So that call was deferred. So while I still am eager to try to make progress on these things, to me that is symbolic of how challenging it can be to try to make progress on all of these fronts and still remain short-staffed. So that's the summary. Of course, all the details are in the report. And there, of course, the minutes also from that meeting are attached in case you'd like to review those. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, Ted, with regard to monitor the flares, our concern, we've been talking about this for some time now, as to what other cities do in California, and there isn't a clear answer yet. The only viable answer I heard was to pack them up and send them to Louisiana. They use flares, which is probably at about $9 per cost per flare.
We wish we could get it for $9.
Yeah, wish. Okay, so we can see that we don't have a plan, there's nothing on the horizon our little Delaware County can take care of in getting rid of these flares, and my concern continues to be that they're being dumped in the ocean quietly. So that's my concern. I continue to have that concern that they just can't keep accumulating, and I just wondered how and when, and I know we talked about you approaching the sheriff and having some kind of an approved, permitted fire burn where we can use these and then burn them out, the old flares, and then dispose them as regular trash. Do you have any report that you can give us on the progress of that conversation?
Yes, and this, I think, is momentum that was built on the statewide meeting that I convened down in Los Angeles. And it looks like we might be able to make some headway in that the big expense of managing these is because they're an explosive. And we generally do not accept explosives at the household hazardous waste event. And there's even a question about whether or not they're household hazardous waste. The person from the Department of Toxic Substance Control thinks that it is worth challenging the question about whether or not these are in fact explosive. Because there's a chemical definition of what an explosive is, and it has to do with a percussive wave once it ignites. Marine flare is a projectile flare that largely is a projectile because it's a flammable unit inside a steel case. And so that's what makes it a projectile. But that doesn't necessarily make it an explosive. If, for instance, we were able to convince the U.S. Department of Transportation that it was appropriate that these not be called explosives, but in fact be called flammables, then we could take them in our existing household hazardous waste collection events, and therefore, the problem would be largely addressed. So there is potential for making headway, but I'm not yet sure what solution that is. I certainly did present to the group the idea of having a dedicated combustion chamber just for these, and there's challenges to each strategy. The challenge with that one is that at this point that would have to be certified as a treatment, and so there's a significant permitting process in terms of treating hazardous waste. And so if you're going to treat an explosive, then there's a significant permitting process in certifying that unit. So I have hopes that this reclassification strategy might yield better results sooner.
Will you have some information at our next meeting on the subject?
I certainly hope so if I am able to make that phone call.
Thank you. Any other questions about the director's report? Okay, treasurer controller report for February 2015. Any? In fact, if you want to just go through the rest of this report, that would be great.
I'd be happy to. Our cash balance is $633,950 plus the iBank loan is an additional nearly $200,000. So we're just around $830,000 in the bank. And I'm very delighted to report that our administrative assistant, Lisa Babcock, has brought our balance from Redwood National State Park to 0. We have received all of that. We can stop talking about that one.
That are in our pocket.
Claims approved by the director, nothing really unusual there. Once again, the larger payment, of course, goes to Hambro, and we're continue to be very pleased with their services and our working relationship. Then looking through towards the end of those reports, looking at our revenue projections, you can see that in terms of our adjusted budget for transfer station revenue, we're still nearly $10,000 ahead of those budget projections, so that's extra cash to the budget. But we are about $6,000 behind in our franchise fee estimates. So bottom line is we're about $4,000 ahead of our revenue projections at this point in time.
I have a question. You've done a good job, Ted, on, I'm looking at the aging sheet. Let me see, my eyes always go right over to the 90 plus days, and I see Porter's Trucking and Logging, $2,033 and change.
That has been referred to collections. Okay. All of the ones that are over $100 and over 90 days have been referred to collections, and all of the ones that are listed at $61 to $90 have had late fees assessed.
Okay, I think that's good job, good work on the Redwood and State National Parks, and get into do what they needed to do, and that's good news.
So, going on then, any other comments on we got the claims, the monthly cash and change reports, any adders there, earned revenue comparisons?
I
covered all that. Okay, very good. That's what I saw. So, it's interesting. I think we will be able to make the presentation at the Flint Center. I think some of us are, yeah. So,
You better not.
thank you all for your patience. It was a very interesting meeting, I thought, and we look forward to seeing you at the next meeting in Solomon.
Thank you.
Meeting's adjourned.